I tuned in just as Caller was talking about VAT, and I think what's a better way of doing it is raising the VAT threshold. I think those threshold ideas are good ideas. If you ever reduce income tax, just focus on increasing the income tax threshold, and that's, I think, an easier way. It takes the burden off of the new businesses, startups, the self-employed. When you start a business, it's very difficult in the early days when you don't have the cash. So you go from 88,000 to 90,000, and now you've got an extra 20% tax bill slammed on immediately. And they say, well, you just put that onto the customer, but then you lose customers because the price goes up.
And again, only the rich people can use those particular services because it becomes unaffordable.
They put it on business. They put it on their business account, right? And they claim the VAT back. Yeah. But most people don't do that. So I think better than lowering VAT is to increase the VAT threshold. And that can be balanced with if you want to increase taxes on unearned wealth. But this is a pro-business move, and it's a pro-social move. It's a pro the people that need it the most.
So you'd like to see that. What do you think of the idea of a tax cut? Do you think it's just a bit gimmicky? Do you think it actually works?
It is very bad leadership to not explain what you mean when you say a tax cut, because that can come from anywhere, and it's not about the up or the down. It's about the where and the how and the what.
Okay.
So, for example, I would like to see a land value tax. Yeah. I would like to see new builds or new properties, let's say under 5 or 7 years old, have a tax holiday so that we can encourage home building. It's about where you do it.
Yeah, I definitely think home building is something that we need to hear. Home building and actually just support for people paying rent. And rumours are, certainly based on the papers, we're not going to hear an awful lot on that. Dan, thank you. Angelina texts on 84850. There's absolutely nothing that would make me vote for the Conservatives. I've never benefited from them being in power. I've had reduced salaries, more taxes, higher mortgages and rubbish services, while you keep hearing they, their friends and family are robbing public money. Christine's in Ilford. Christine, what do you want to hear from the Chancellor?
Oh, good morning. Yes, I'm a pensioner of 84.
Yeah.
And I've paid in insurance all my life. Now, people are coming to this country getting free medical, free teeth, free everything. Now, I don't consider that to be liable, and they should be paying something towards it. Now, as for the houses,
they would disagree.
You know what Homes Under the Hammer?
Yeah, with Dion Dublin. Is that Dion Dublin one?
I don't know who it is, but no. And people are buying up houses that are ruined, right? Doing them up and then letting them out for enormous amounts of money. Now, this is not helping the young people to buy houses or rent houses, because they come in on the boats from other countries and don't need that anymore, and getting benefits for nothing.
Christine, I don't know how old you are, but the Sunday Express today says angry pensioners pre-budget warning to Hunt, cut taxes or lose grey votes. He's been warned that he'll face a furious backlash from pensioners if he doesn't cut income tax this week. What'd you say to that?
That's right. I feel the same way.
Yeah? You agree with that?
Well, when you've paid it all your life, if you went to another country and they said, oh, I've got a bad leg, can you fix it? You'd have to pay. Now, people coming to this country do not pay. Now, is that right? When you've been
we pay taxes towards it.
Well, no. If anybody comes to this country illegally or legally, they don't pay it, right? They just get medication.
Well, no, if you earn a living, then you do. You pay towards. You pay tax.
Well, I don't see boat people earning a living as soon as they pop in the country.
Well, I think it does vary. Christine, thank you. Christine there in Ilford, with her view, she wants to see a tax cut. I don't like the phrase boat people either. I think it slightly demeans people, doesn't it? Dave is in Bracknell. Dave, what do you want to say?
I want to say no cuts to national insurance. That's what's paying for our health service. I don't really think there's any headroom when a lot of councils are going bust. And all that happens is that they then put up the local tax and you don't benefit at all. So I'm really against individual taxes, but of course that's not going to win anyone any votes. But on the business front, I'd say a lot of pubs are struggling because they can't. They have to pay a higher rate of that than supermarkets who are selling booze. So a lot of them are going out of business. That would help. But again, it's not an individual tax; it's a group tax, if you like. And the other one was the tourism tax that's losing us thousands of pounds, so that they could decrease that. But again, they're not election bribes because they're not individual taxes.
I do think it's there are so many areas where people need support, whether that's help for small businesses, because a lot of small it's not the most entrepreneurial climate at the moment, is it? And it does feel like a 2% blank cut is, look, great. I'll be happy if I look at my paycheck and I've got, on average, £450 less to pay. But really, do I think that's best? Probably not. I think there's people who could definitely benefit from a tax cut. But I think really, if we're looking at priorities on tax, surely it's thresholds, like we've been saying this morning, or in terms of generally using that money, public services or helping small businesses. Is there anything, though, Dave, because you've given a good argument in terms of what they should do, but is there anything that would personally benefit you, even if you're being a bit selfish?
Well, no, not really, because I realise that for every...
You mentioned pubs.
Benefit,
maybe they could help pubs.
Yes.
Well, Clive Ball, by the way, who was on before, made the point that there's an article in the Times today, more than 1,200 pubs closed in the last year, which is crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how many councils are going to collapse in the next year? They're all on the edge of bank. There's no headroom. That's a misnomer. We'll pay for it one way or another. And definitely not... I'm trying to be as unselfish as possible. And for groups that are making my country money, small businessmen, I'm all for that, giving them a better deal on that. But not individual taxes. I said that the timing is all wrong, and it just comes across as an election bribe.
Dave, thank you very much. Dave there in Bracknell. Nick texts on 84850. I'd love to hear something more for small businesses around VAT. It sits at 20% still, and in the last budget, only large businesses benefited from anything. With the new increase in wages, which I definitely welcome, something else has to give, otherwise more and more small businesses will close. Interesting point. This one comes in from Lazarus. Great name. Henry, good morning. Hunt can cut taxes to 1% if he wants. No one's buying their nonsense. Nothing he says will convince most people. He's better off staying at home today. Nice welcoming attitude for Jeremy Hunt before he speaks with Matthew. Khalid's in Edmonton. Khalid, what do you want to say?
Morning, Henry.
Morning.
I thought bribery was illegal, wasn't it?
Right.
I mean, it's just a bribe, isn't it? It's just a bribe. I think everyone will see through it. You know, they just want to get re-elected, and so they're not really looking after public finances. They're not looking after public finances properly. What would I like to see in the budget? I'd like to see the cap on the 2-child benefit cap removed. What's seriously sad, and why I'm not voting Conservative or Labour, is that there's no difference between the parties. I mean, both Keir Starmer and the Tories don't want to kind of get rid of that cap, and it's led to increasing amounts of child poverty, which is shocking.
I suppose Labour would argue they've been dealt a pretty difficult hand at the moment. I'm sure it's something they would look at in the future. But I do take your point. What would so other than that, the 2-child benefit cap? Is there anything that would actually make you smile on Wednesday when Jeremy Hunt announces it? Yeah.
So to pay for the scrap of that, we need a wealth tax. I mean, I've been campaigning for this for years, Henry. We need a wealth tax. We need the people that can afford, the billionaires in this country, and we're increasing them. We need them to step up and say, you've got the broader shoulders, so you should be entitled to pay a bit more. I mean, who's going to argue against that? Who disagrees with that?
Fair point. Khalid, just moving on because loads of people want their say, but Khalid wants a wealth tax. Phil in Manchester says they should abolish standing charges on gas and electric. This would help the poorer households. I'd love that. That'd be great. Daniel's in Golders Green. Daniel, what do you want to say?
Morning, Henry. Hi. I'd really like to see at the budget on Wednesday a cut to stamp duty, a 1-year-long stamp duty holiday to help people, particularly young people, get on the property market. If you remember when Rishi Sunak did it during the pandemic, it really boosted the property market, helped people. I knew I had friends that saved about £35,000
Yeah.
And help, and I think at the same time, I'd like to see Jeremy Hunt as well help the rental side of the property market by reducing all the tax changes on landlords, the war on landlords that the Conservatives have been waging to help reduce rental prices. And I'm a landlord myself, and I would do that.
So you think actually the reason why tenants are being squeezed at the moment is because of an attack on landlords?
Absolutely, yes. If you look over the last 14 years, the Conservatives have put a 3% stamp duty surcharge on buy-to-let properties. They've increased capital gains tax to 28%. They've reduced the mortgage relief. And as a result, about 250,000 landlord properties have left the market. The Treasury has lost about £1.6 billion in rental income tax on the rental income. And renters have seen their rent skyrocket. It's absolute madness. Look, Henry, you will know, you're a very bright man, bright fellow. You will see... Well, yeah, we don't know. You're brilliant. But in the last 14 years, whenever the government has cut taxes, it's boosted the economy. Whenever they've raised taxes, it's really hampered the economy, and the Treasury has lost money. Just look at the tourist tax.
Which doesn't look like it's going to be scrapped. It looks like that's going to remain.
I know it does. I was very upset to see that because wealthy overseas visitors, tourists that come here, they spend money. But the bean counters at the Treasury said, "Oh no, well it costs £2 billion. Cost us £2 billion." Well, actually, why didn't Jeremy Hunt, who's supposed to be clever, say to them, "Well, hang on a minute. When people come here, they don't just do shopping. They stay in hotels. They spend money in our restaurants. They take taxis. They go to the theatre. They spend." It actually turns out that scrapping or introducing the tourist tax has cost £11 billion to the economy.
Goodness me, is that right? Wow.
Yeah. Henry, why aren't these supposedly intelligent Conservative government ministers challenging the Treasury and the civil servants, saying, hang on a minute, if we, for example, reduce the pension lifetime allowance cap, it will force loads of medical consultants to leave the NHS. Why don't they say this? I think I'm so frustrated with the Conservatives, Henry. They're going to have to pull a real rabbit out the hat. That's all I'm saying.
Fair point. Lastly, in terms of a 2p cut, if indeed that is what we get, you made the point earlier that if you reduce taxes in some cases, it does look like you can increase revenue. Is that at least moving on the right lines?
It is. It is moving along the right lines.
Too little, too late.
Too little, too late, and tinkering around the edges. At this stage of the game, it's so inconsequential. Giving people back, giving the peasants, as they would say, as Hunt would say, the Conservatives a 2p. It's peanuts, Henry. There's nothing they can do at this stage. It's too late.
Fair point. Daniel, moving on, just to get other people involved, thank you very much. Mike's in Perth. Mike, what do you want to hear from the Chancellor?
Oh, I'd love to hear him reinstating the personal tax threshold. He's a bit fiscal drag. You'll know what fiscal drag is, Henry. He's dragging us poor pensioners, pensioners with a modest personal private pension, dragging us into paying more and more tax. Just had my new tax code put in the door yesterday. I'm paying a tax on £1,000 more than I was last year. It's absolutely scandalous. It's and 2p national insurance cut, 2p on tax. He's just given with one hand. And this personal tax threshold has been frozen for the last 3 years, I think, and getting frozen until 2028. He's dragging more and more low earners and pensioners into paying more and more tax.
One thing I think has some merit is this idea in the papers that Jeremy Hunt is going for second home owners who do short-term lets. Now, I appreciate for some people that is a business, and so that is directly tackling their business, and not everyone who owns it is a millionaire, etc. I do understand that, although you do have considerable assets. But this idea of taxing the people who own multiple houses, say in Cornwall, let's pick Cornwall, pick on them, and it puts up property prices. Do you think that's the right move to target them?
Henry, I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. That wouldn't affect me one little bit.
Well, no, but it would raise money. It would raise 300 million quid.
Listen, do you know what I said? The personal tax threshold.
Yeah,
he's frozen
that could pay for it.
And he's dragging us into until 2028. He's dragging us into 2p off income tax taken, given with one hand, and it will be gone. And the same with your £450 national insurance.
Yeah.
You're going to get in your pay packet. Just look at how much he's going to tax you.
He has to pay for changing the thresholds, though, doesn't he? It's all very well to say he needs to change the thresholds.
No,
he has to,
no.
Of course, you have to pay for it.
We've had the thresholds. Thresholds have gone up with inflation every year, but they're being frozen now. So no, he doesn't have to pay for the thresholds. Okay. What he's doing is, as I say, fiscal drag, just bringing more and more, if you like, less well off into paying tax. An absolute scam. I've been a Conservative voter all my adult life. I'm closer to 80 than I'm 70 now, and I'm absolutely disgusted with them. Unless he raises the personal tax threshold, they've shot their bolt.
They've lost your vote. OK, Mike, thank you very much. Mike there in Perth doesn't agree with that idea of a second homes tax. Would raise £300 million, though.